I'm just really passionate about this, about time in general, because I think it's really easy to lose track of our time and not pay super close attention to it with our cell phones in our hand or our pocket or by us all the time, and social media with the feed that never stops, right? So I've just seen in my own life and with a lot of people around me that it's just much easier to distract ourselves from what's important. And how do we create time, how carve out time for things that we want to do that are important to us? And so this quote says, "You will never find time for anything. If you want time, you must make it." We only have 24 hours in a day. So what do we do with those hours that we have? Because it was very limited and we don't know how many we will have overall.
My name is Carolyn Santos. I'm the chapter director for Startup Grind Kansas City. And I'm really excited this afternoon to have with us Jen Roberts, and she's going to talk about some time management techniques that can help those of us busy entrepreneurs and business owners, creators, really for anyone who just needs to maybe take a step back and take a breath. So super excited for this session. We'll get started. And let's talk a little bit about the Startup Grind values, which is give first, make friends, and others. And that's really what the Startup Grind mission is all about. So let me tell you a little bit about Stein and the Startup Grind chapter. Startup Grind is the world's largest community of startup founders, innovators, creators, small business owners, anyone who's interested in that entrepreneurial ecosystem. We have thousands of events across the globe, and it's always bringing sort of like-minded technology creators, innovators, all those people who are interested in having a business and solving solutions. We have a flagship conference that's happening in 2024 in Redwood City, California. So if you get a chance, come check it out. Right now, our reach is 3.5 million people in 600 chapters, 125 countries. We really do cover the globe when it comes to an entrepreneurial ecosystem. You can definitely find someone out there that can help you with your question or your problem that you want answered or help with. And about Startup Grind Kansas City, we're a small group. We started relaunching the chapter here in September of 2020. So just over 3 years in working with the Kansas City ecosystem. Kansas City is known as the city of fountains, and I've certainly discovered that as I've traveled around the city to various events and programs, and it really is a beautiful city. So happy to be here and happy to be part of the Startup Grind family. Today's session is 60-second self-care for those entrepreneurs, founders, business owners. We get stressed. We get pulled a million different ways. We have, 12,000 action items on our to-do list. I mean, there's just any number of things that really keep us busy, keep us anxious, keep us awake at night, all those things. And so I'm really excited to talk to Jen today. And it's an interesting field, and so I'm excited to ask her a little bit about that as well. But with that, we're going to talk to Jen Roberts, and she has a startup called Time Honored Coach. So Jen, welcome. Thank you for being super excited to have you.
Hello.
So we were talking about leadership, and one of the things that I was mentioning earlier is that leadership is such a vast bucket of work, right? And there's definitely leadership coaches that you can find, and they have some very specific areas of marketability, if you will, like, hey, we're going to teach you emotional intelligence leadership, or we're going to teach you digital adaptability leadership. But I've never heard of a time leadership coach. So I'm really excited to understand a little bit about what that is. How did you find it? Or are you the first one? Did you invent this? Tell us a little bit about it.
I think I may have invented my title of time creation coach. I had known that I was interested in entrepreneurship for at least 10 years before I started this business. I had tried a few things, trying to dip my toe cautiously into the water. And a couple years ago, I realized that I needed to go all in because I wanted to know if I could do it. I didn't want to get to the end of my life and wonder if I had gone all in on a business that I was truly passionate about, if I could have made it or not. So I hired a coach and time management coaching basically is what we came up with together, and that's the business I've started building and have been working on for a little over a year now.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about time building, because we only get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To me, that's a great equalizer, because there's not a human being on the planet that gets extra time. We
Right.
all
That
get
is
the same amount. So,
Yeah, that is very true. And so, as much as I would like to be able to wave a magic wand and give my clients an extra hour in the day, it doesn't work that way. So, instead, it comes down to a lot of those fundamental tools that we hear about all the time that we try to implement in our lives. And we have more or less success. Sometimes we're great at having boundaries, sometimes we're not. For women in particular, we struggle with a lot of that stuff. We're socialized to be people pleasers a lot of the time. I am a recovering people pleaser. And so, what I have learned is that I've just been thinking about this stuff for a lot longer than a lot of people. So, I've been thinking about it for about 20 years now and applying it to my own life in just kind of a casual way. And so, it wasn't until last year that I really started taking my experiences and what I learned and what I thought about and kind of formalizing it into a coaching and presentation structure.
wow, that is amazing. So I'm extremely interested to see the presentation. I know we've talked also a little bit about mind, body, soul. So some of the things that you're going to touch on is to help relieve the stress in those areas, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about your background that drove you to time honored coaching. Because to me, this feels like one of those soft sciences like psychology, but I'll bet it's not. There's probably some real fact and empirical science behind it.
Oh, I mean, there are a lot of science or facts and figures behind it. In every presentation I create, I end up doing a bunch of research online, and pulling statistics and facts to help illuminate the scope of the problem that I want to talk about. And so that's been really interesting. I really enjoy making new presentations like this one to get to do that research and to learn more about it. I'm just really passionate about about time in general, because I think it's really easy to lose track of our time and not pay super close attention to it with our cell phones in our hand or our pocket or by us all the time, and social media with the feed that never stops, right? So I've just seen in my own life and with a lot of people around me that it's just much easier to distract ourselves from what's important. And I have friends my age that are already saying they're just waiting for retirement to start their lives, basically. And I'm only in my late 30s. So that means they have at least 20 more years to go, if not 15 or more, or I mean, 25 or more, right? And
Right.
so I'm just like, I don't, to me, that is absolute folly to wait 20 years to start your life. And so if there are people in that situation that don't want to wait, I want to help them and help empower them with the tools and the strategies and the self knowledge to live the life they want, not the life they were told they should have by school or their parents or society or whatever it is.
Well, that reminds me and I know we talk about this all the time too, but in a way, the pandemic was a gift of time. And it really forced so many people to stop and think. And I can't help but wonder if that is some of what is also fueling this need to really create like we were saying earlier, boundaries.
Absolutely. I have with my job, and I do a ton of networking, probably 2 to 3 times a week at least, meeting people. And so I've met other coaches in the area, and almost all of them tell me that if they had their business before the pandemic is really what kicked it into overdrive and made it a full-time gig for them, because people had time, they had money, they were stuck inside, and they wanted to change things and improve things in their lives and their circumstances. And so part of me kicks myself for not starting earlier. But one of my favorite sayings is, the best time to plant an apple tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. And so I truly believe that it's never too late to start, and that when you start is the right time. And there is a reason that you started then. And for me, it actually came from a health, maybe not crisis, but a health thing, right?
Right.
Almost a year to the day from the pandemic shutdown here in Kansas City, I started having horrible insomnia. I was getting 2 to 4 hours of sleep a night. My life was a wreck. And this went on for about 6 weeks before I saw a doctor who heard my story, didn't even let me get all the way through it and said, that's anxiety. We're putting you on medication and you're going to start seeing the in-house therapist. Now, 2 years later, between working with the therapist, being on anti-anxiety medications, and working with a coach for a year, I can hardly believe the amount of progress and development and
Mhm.
change I have made on myself. And so I'm a true believer now.
Well, yeah, and I was sitting here thinking almost there's an accountability that starts to happen, right? You are spending time and effort and energy with someone who's helping you to change some habits and some situations, if you will, right? And so you can't help but be accountable to that, and you can't help but change.
Absolutely. Before that, before working with my coach one-on-one, which was a significant monetary investment, I had paid for some smaller courses, some group courses, some self-led online courses, and I never finished any of them. And I was like, maybe I'm just not cut out to do a
Mm.
business, right? And so it wasn't until I realized that I really needed to make that investment of the time and the attention to get that one-on-one help that I really saw progress finally.
And do you think that really helped in the confidence of like, I'm going to go take this step now and be a business owner? And
Yeah,
I'm going to go now do help others, right?
100%. The coach I hired is actually someone here in Kansas City, and she specializes in helping people figure out what business they want to create. She calls herself a clarity coach, which was really attractive to me because I felt like I was like, well, I'm like 36 now and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So that was really attractive to me. And working with her, one of our first sessions, she asked me, "What do you want to get out of coaching?" And I had to think about it for a second. And I said, "I want to learn how to trust myself because,
Oh gosh, that is such a hard thing for women in
yes,
business to do. Oh, I
yes,
want to learn more about that too. Okay.
well, what I realized is that that was going to underpin my entire business, right? If I wanted to work for myself, wanted to be my own business, be a CEO, make $1 million someday, I had to be able to trust myself and rely on myself and not look for everyone else's opinions. So that's why I figured that whether or not I ended up with a business, whether I stuck with the business long term or not, being able to trust myself, being more confident with my gut, I figured that would last forever.
I think of a situation with my oldest daughter who used to come to me all the time for advice, and I would give her advice, but she never took it. And
Yeah.
finally, one day I said to her, I'm not going to give you advice anymore. You're going to tell me what you're going to do, and I'm going to support that and love you through that. And this is very similar in that if you do not trust your own abilities and instincts to be in business, to do business, who else would want to do business with you?
It's been really fascinating between this work with my therapist and my coach to see some of these changes and to be more secure in myself and realize I have my own back, that I don't need my parents' approval to do this, to run this business or whatever it is.
Right.
And and so actually it's been really interesting over the last year to spend more time with my family and see how this lack of self-trust has actually been handed down through my family. Right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
My
Yeah.
mom has some of the same issues that I do, that I see. We went on a cruise together for 2 weeks this spring, and I was just like, "Holy cow, that's where that came from." She taught me to be like that.
Yeah, I totally understand. It's interesting when you can see those characteristics sort of play out in the family.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, and I want to turn it over to you now. So I'm going to let you share your screen, and we will go into your presentation. And looking forward to learning a little bit to help myself in those moments. So thank you. And Jen, take it away.
All right. Okay, so hello, everyone. As you know, I'm Jen Roberts. I'm a time creation coach, and I've been doing that since about June of last year, is what I would say. So a little over a year.
You
So,
got
my
it.
first question, which Carolyn, so you can chime in if you want to, have you taken a break today?
Yes, only because I knew this session was
Ah,
coming.
okay. So just
And
one?
no, I actually took two breaks, and one of them was because someone rang the front door, so I did get up from my chair. And the other one was I was in a moment of frustration. I was dealing with an Excel spreadsheet, and it just wouldn't fix the formula, and so I just kind of stood up and walked away from my chair and went outside to breathe some fresh air.
Yeah, but that's one of the best things you can do is get outside. In my research, that's what I came across, is that being in green space is one of the best ways to recharge. So I'm kind of the same way. I took a break for lunch. I had a lot of errands to do today, but I don't always take consistent breaks. But my husband is a teacher. He teaches middle school, 8th grade English, 8th and 9th grade English. So as a middle school teacher, he doesn't get a lot of breaks, right? He gets a lunch break, he gets a plan. Whether or not he has time to take care of himself then is up for grabs. But I knew that he had 4 to 5 minutes of passing period almost every hour. And so I started wondering, what could someone do when they have a regular event that maybe they really can't take 15 minutes for a break, but they could take a minute to do something small. And so that's kind of where this presentation grew out of, is wanting to provide really quick exercises and tips, and we'll practice some as we go through, because self-care, it's super important to reset ourselves and take care of our body and not just stay glued to the computer screen or to work all day long.
Especially in this work from home moment, right?
Yes, where the boundaries between work and home are so porous these days, with our cell phones at home and our email on our phone. It's really important to be able to take time for yourself still. So first, I would like us to take a moment to just pay attention to ourselves. We're going to check in and see if you feel like it, if you're comfortable with it, maybe close your eyes, or you can kind of look down without really focusing on anything, because I really want you to focus inward to see, how do you feel right now? How is your breathing? Are you breathing fast or slow? Is it shallow or deep? What about tension? Do you have pain anywhere? Personally, I carry a lot of tension in my face. So when I'm not presenting or talking, I tend to clench my jaw. And so that's something I try to pay more attention to catch myself when I'm getting too stressed. And then, is your mind chaotic, or is it quiet? Is it restless? So right now, there's no judgment. We're just taking stock, seeing where we are right now as we start this, because we are, like I said, we are going to do a few of the exercises as we go through. So I'll just be curious to see if you see a change as we go. So I like to give you a heads up about what to expect during your course today. So I'll talk a little bit about myself next, and a little more about my background, some stuff that we didn't cover earlier. And then we'll talk about how to create time for self-care. This is what my one-on-one coaching program is based on. And then we'll talk about self-care concepts and techniques, and then how to implement it, and some suggestions, especially since this presentation was geared towards CEOs, business owners, and people like that, people that are decision makers. That makes a difference. So some background on me. I mentioned earlier that I've been thinking about how I spend my time for about 20 years, and that's from when I was in high school. My favorite English teacher loved this quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living," which is from I believe he's an ancient Greek philosopher, Socrates, and my English teacher was Mr. Farrell, so that's where I first encountered it. I am an artist on the side as well. And so I participated in the first Parade of Hearts here in Kansas City. So that's me with my giant 5-foot heart down in the Power and Light District a couple springs ago. And my husband, I actually enlisted his help, and we hauled that to his school and had all of his students put their handprints on it. And I am a Kearney High School graduate. Kearney is a suburb about 30 minutes north of Kansas City. I graduated in the class of 2003. I have a Bachelor's of Arts in French and Performing Arts from Lindenwood University, which is over near St. Louis on the other side of Missouri. And those are degrees that I didn't think I would ever use. But now I'm actually realizing that with the more public speaking that I'm doing, more presentations like this, that my Performing Arts degree is actually coming in handy.
Very much so, yes.
Yes, because I'm comfortable presenting in front of people. I have never really suffered from stage fright, thank goodness. I graduated in 2008 from college, just in time for the Great Recession. So I worked in Yellow Pages Publishing for a few years. I had a brief stint working for a vinyl siding manufacturer. And then the last 8 years before I started my business, or while I started it for the first 6 months, I also worked in software. I prefer tea, not coffee. I'm a complete tea snob. I have an entire cabinet devoted to it. I love cats. I'm not a dog person. I have one cat here at home with me. And as I mentioned, I am an artist on the side and I love to paint in watercolor. So I love telling you some quotes that were impactful for me. So this is one that I use in every presentation I give because this is kind of what prompted me to start thinking about it as time creation instead of just time management. How do we create time, how carve out time for things that we want to do that are important to us? And so this quote says, "You will never find time for anything. If you want time, you must make it." Right? Because as we said before, we only have 24 hours in a day. So what do we do with those hours that we have? Because it was very limited and we don't know how many we will have overall.
How you frame that, time versus time management. Time management sounds like a task. And once it sounds like a task, it becomes heavy and I don't want to do it.
Yes, and that is what I knew. And that's part of the reason initially when my coach suggested that maybe I should be coaching around time and time management, I was like, ew, gross, no. It took me a while to figure out a way to enjoy it because time management systems don't work for me. I stick with something for a while and then I fall off the wagon and have to find something else to do. I just get bored too easily. So since time management systems didn't work for me, why would I expect them to work for everyone else? So this quote is from Charles Buxton, who I am not sure who he is, but the internet tells me he's an English brewer, philanthropist, writer, and member of parliament. All right, so this is our first signal to practice one of our self-care techniques. And I didn't bring my phone, but I have my watch because I'm going to time it so we make sure we stick to 60 seconds. And for this first one, again, just like we did earlier, I'd like you to either close your eyes if you're comfortable with that, or you can look in the distance without really focusing on it, kind of go inward. And we're going to do 60 seconds of breathing exercises. So I'll guide you through it and then we'll do it as well. Okay. So I'm going to set my timer on my watch so I respect our time for 1 minute. Okay. So with your eyes closed or gently focused, breathe in through your nose with your mouth closed for a count of 6 seconds. Pause briefly and then exhale for 6 seconds, allowing your breath to leave your body slowly and gently without forcing it. So this is called resonance breathing. And let's do that another 2 times if we can. So this time I'm going to count. So we'll breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll do it again. So inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And our 60 seconds are up with that. But paying attention to your breathing is one of the best, fastest, easiest, freest ways to reset your body and your attention. Your body reacts to stress no matter where it comes from, right? So if you get an angry email from a customer or whether you're being chased by the bear, it all feels the same in your body. But taking time to slow down, pay attention to your breathing, take slow, deep breaths, tells your body that you are not in danger. So that was resonance breathing, and a similar technique you can do is triangle breathing, where you do each step for the same count. So maybe you'd inhale for 4, hold for 4, and then exhale for 4. So there are assorted breathing techniques. You can just pay attention to your breath. For me, my mind is way too wild to just pay attention to my breathing. Meditation, I do it, but it's very hard for me to focus on it. So counting helps me stay focused on the activity. So it's nice, it's great and all good to have all these techniques to use, but how do we actually create the time in our lives for self-care, whether that's 60 seconds at a time or an hour at a time? So the first thing that I talk to my clients about is understanding yourself. That's where all of it comes from. You have to know what's important to you. So get clear on what matters to you. And take a look at what mental load are you carrying? Are you carrying around grief from loss of a loved one at any point in your life? Maybe a loss of a pet, anyone that was important to you? Do you carry a lot of self-doubt, as we talked about earlier, right? I wanted to learn how to trust myself. And once I did, it really cleared up a lot of that negative mental chatter so that I had space for hope and positivity and belief in myself. And then you want to take a second, a minute, whatever you need to kind of assess what obligations and people are in your life to see if they are really benefiting your life. Are they lifting you up or are they dragging you down? Did you sign up for an activity a couple years ago and you were excited about it at the time, but now every time it comes up, you just kind of dread going? Take a look at those activities and see if you can start to get out of them entirely or maybe scale back. So, secondly, we have to understand the value of our time. What's your hourly rate? This is the most straightforward thing to do. It's one of the very earliest kind of thought experiments that I started doing with myself. For example, if I go to the store and I buy my groceries, get home, look at my receipt, and realize that I was overcharged by $2 for something, is it really worth my time to get back in the car, to drive up there, to stand in line to talk to customer service about a $2 charge if I'm making even minimum wage? Even if you don't know your hourly rate, pick 10, 20, $50 an hour, whatever makes the math easy, right? And most of the time, I'll probably decide, no, it's not worth my time. But that was very different for me. I'm here in Kansas City, we're in the Midwest. We have family stories of my grandpa who used to drive around town to save a penny on a gallon of gas, So I that was a really big mental change for me. What about doing things yourself? Do you enjoy it? If you do, great, go for it. But if you have a plumbing problem and you hate the idea of learning how to solve it yourself, it might be worth your time to hire someone, a professional, to come do it. And all of these things are individual. There's no right or wrong answer, and it might change from year to year or even from situation to situation. And are you a control freak or even a perfectionist? Because those types of standards are really going to hold you back, especially again, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur. If you are unable to delegate, that's going to severely limit how much you can scale or grow your business. So you just have to start looking at that stuff, become aware of that stuff. You don't have to change it overnight, but just start thinking about it and asking yourself, why do I do that? How can I change? Lastly, I talk with my clients about how to create and protect your time. Where can you let go? Have you signed up for an obligation that isn't really fitting with where you are in your life right now? Can you get out of some things? Can you say no to things? There is a saying that no is a complete sentence, and I would push back on that and say it is not in the Midwest. And you can still say no. I'm not saying that we won't let you say no here in Kansas City, but if someone asks me if I want to volunteer for something, I can't just say no and be done with the conversation, right? We have to say, oh, no, thank you, or we have to soften it a little bit. And that's okay. Again, baby steps. If you are a doormat right now, a recovering people pleaser like me, start with saying, oh, no, thank you, I can't. Schedule things on your calendar so that when it comes up, you have an excuse to not go. Try to start looking at what thought patterns hold you back. If you feel a sense of dread or negative energy whenever you have to go to work, even whether it's your own business or going to work for somebody else, if you're thinking, oh man, I have to get up and go to work today. How can you flip that script to empower yourself about it? That it's a choice that you are making. So maybe instead of saying, man, excuse me, I have to go to work today, can you flip that and say, I get to go to work. I get to provide for my family. Or if you do own your own business, I get to build the business of my dreams. So just start looking for those negative thought patterns and see how you can change them to be empowering. Like, man, I have to pay this bill. Well, if you can flip that script and say, I get to ensure that my household has its basic needs met. And also, always, I'm sure you've heard of this before, check your boundaries. Are you a doormat? Are you a people pleaser? What can you do to start saying no more or pushing back on people that try to take advantage of you? Because unfortunately, no one but you is responsible for your time and how you spend it. So now we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the whole reason you're probably here about self-care itself. So what is self-care? Carolyn, do you have a definition of self-care?
I always thought of it as sort of being selfish, like this is my time and you can't talk to me, or I'm not going to do anything. You know, and I've done it, and I've done that, but it's been to your point, it's been a negative response to something like, I'm done, you can't talk to me anymore,
Yeah.
versus, and I love your comment about flipping the script. I mean, I know that from all the emotional intelligence work that I've done, to turn those positives into a negative. But when it's it's so
Oh,
hard to do that inward moment to say, wait a minute, yeah,
yeah. I mean,
you're
I
requiring
talk
some time, and I'll do, yeah.
Yeah, I talk about time management, but I'm by no means perfect about it. And I never will be. We're all humans. We're all going to make mistakes. And I actually have realized that that's important, that messing up and falling off the wagon is what shows you if it was working or not. So, a coaching program that I am currently in talks about how there isn't failure really. They say you're either succeeding or you are learning. And I think that is a great way to think about it, because even if you think it's a failure, what you learned perhaps is that you never want to do that again. We're all a work in progress. That's okay.
Exactly.
One time I showed up 30 minutes late to a 60-minute networking event and then had to get up and introduce myself as a time creation coach.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? I was very memorable.
For
So
sure.
that's how I flipped that script for me. So the dictionary definition of self-care is what's on screen. But as I was doing my research for this presentation, I found one that I liked a lot better. It says self-care is an essential and foundational aspect of maintaining overall well-being and ensuring a fulfilling life. It encompasses a diverse range of activities, such as activities that prioritize physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So, just as a car requires regular maintenance to function optimally, our bodies and minds require attention and care to perform at their best. So, I really like that analogy of preventative maintenance.
Yeah, and what we were talking about earlier, mind, body, soul, it really is connected. And so being able, earlier, just doing that breathing exercise totally changed, my mind, like, oh, calm down, you're doing
Awesome.
this session,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the hope. So I'm glad to hear it's working,
Yeah.
because I mean, I was telling you about my health thing, my insomnia, right? Like I've been trying to ignore my body for probably decades at that point. And so if you don't, it is going to make itself known, right? You can't just go through
Right.
life ignoring half of your existence.
It does manifest itself in other ways.
Yes, your body will force you to, right? And I've seen, since I talk about this stuff a lot on social media, the algorithm feeds me stuff that reinforces this. And I've seen one lately, like a little cute graphic that was like, and so it showed like a half full battery, and it says, recharge, do your self care here, not at the empty battery with the angry red at the bottom. So now it's time to practice again.
All right.
So we're going to do 60 seconds again, and this time we're going to do a little bit of stretching, which is something you can do at your desk. So I will set my timer on my watch again to give us 60 seconds, because every little bit helps. So we're going to go for a minute. So what areas for you need help? For me, I like to roll my head around a little bit. I might shrug my shoulders up and down, especially rolling them up, back, and down to get that good posture back in. It's a great one for me. I'll circle my wrists around, 3 to 5 circles in each direction. I've started having some weird pain in my forearms, so like pulling back on my hands and
Mm-hmm.
then flipping it and doing it the other way helps a lot, especially if you're at a computer all day, using that same arm to use your mouse. So you can do like a figure 4 stretch if you sit at a desk to stretch your hips. So you take like your right foot, put that over your knee and kind of bend into that to get that hip and quad stretch, the back of your
Mm-hmm.
thighs. Those feel good. So it's wherever you know you hold tension. So that's why I do a lot with my shoulders and head. And that's our 60 seconds.
Wow, that was fast. It didn't seem like 60 seconds.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's why you probably can't do all of those things, right? But you
Right.
can pick a couple of them. And especially if you can combine it with your breathing, if you have time, if you can close your eyes to just roll your head around a few times and your shoulders in particular, pick 2 to 3 things that you'd like to focus on so that you don't run out of time. And
Right.
if you have time, keep going if you can, right? But if you don't, a minute is still enough. This is a quote I came across recently. Self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. Katie Reed wrote that. She's a writer, speaker, and mental health advocate. And that's part of it, is I think we need to flip the script on self-care even. I became interested in this concept because I felt like self-care was always advertised to me as expensive. It was taking a week vacation in Cabo or something like that. It
Right.
was doing an entire spa day with lots of money and tips. And I'm like, I can't do that. I can't afford it. I don't have the time, whatever it is, right? Well, it doesn't have to be that. Small, regular things is important as well. So, how important is self care? Here come some stats for you. So, 59% of employees reported feeling burnt out in 2022. And that is
Mm.
actually on par with levels reported during the peak of the pandemic. Burned out employees are 2.6 times as likely to be actively seeking another job. They are 63% more likely to take a sick day
Mm.
and 23% more likely to visit the emergency room. Workplace stress is estimated to cost US businesses more than $500 billion. And each year, 550 million workdays are lost due to stress on the job, probably from those previous stats we talked about.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that right there, those are the two probably identifying, stats. It is workplace cost and the money lost
Right.
because a leader didn't understand that the staff needed some self-care
Right.
moments, right? Or some
Yes.
opportunity. Yep.
So I am able to give you tools to help your own self care, to take care of yourself, but that's not enough. Eventually we have to go out and make some structural changes as well, which is why if you own your own business like me, I am only one employee, right? I'm everything. I'm CEO, I'm social media manager, I'm everything. But I still need to not be the worst boss I ever had. Or why did I start my business? So you can start, even if you're a solo entrepreneur like me, you can start now putting in things in place, start thinking about it, think about what you would want to have to make a great, welcoming, healthy workplace for your staff. And it's not just a moral thing or the right thing to do, it's expensive to not take care of your employees. So, the interesting one here at the bottom for me is that 97% of people, when they take breaks, use social media as their break. So, they're scrolling social media, and that actually leads to more emotional exhaustion,
Hmm.
diminished creativity, and lower work engagement. So, I
More
know
anxiety, I would think.
yes, you get comparisonitis. I do that.
Yeah.
I spend time on social media more than I'd like to. And I can tell the days when I spend a lot of, when I have free time, downtime, and I spend it on social media, I typically feel worse by the end of the day. So if you're one of those people like me who often uses social media or playing around on the internet as your break, just know it's not the best choice. Pick one of these other options. So I'm also curious for if our audience member wants to participate, or Carolyn, on average, how many breaks per day would you say you take?
Since I've started working from home in February, 100% full time, because our agency is 100% remote. Every employee is a remote employee. And so I force myself in the morning to get up and get a hot cup of coffee because my other coffee's gotten cold. And I've made myself start taking a lunch break to walk
Good.
away from my laptop for at least 30 minutes. And I've learned to leave the room so that I don't hear the ding of the laptop and then,
Yes.
get curious. Oh, well, I can eat my lunch here while
Yes. And
and
that's why
so,
all that stuff is so compulsive and so addictive, right?
and it's, I don't want to say intuitive, but it's just like an automatic response, like, oh, the ding. And, I don't want to be that person. So I've forced myself to leave my room, go sit in the other room, eat my lunch, maybe watch news for a minute or something like that. I've even
Yeah.
stopped taking my phone because if
Yes.
a Slack message comes in for work, it shows up on my phone now. And so I've had to, but these are things I've had to like consciously
Yes.
do. And that's hard because I don't consciously do them every day, if that makes sense.
I work from home as well. Even when I worked in software, I worked from home for the last 8 years. I'm very good about taking my lunch break away from my computer in general. And that's a really good one. My first jobs before that were all hourly. And so actually that really set me up for success long term. Now I can see in retrospect. At the
Mhm.
time, I was really disappointed because I wanted to be a salary office worker, working my way up the corporate ladder. But being hourly meant that I took a 15-minute break in the morning. I took a 30-minute unpaid lunch. And then I took a 15-minute break in the afternoon. And when work was done at 5 p.m., I was done. Right.
Mhm.
So it really trained me to have really good boundaries around work, the separation of work and my personal time. So for breaks, the research recommends short breaks in the morning and then longer breaks in the afternoon because we are more fatigued the longer the workday goes
Mhm.
and we need more time to recharge. So if you're like me and you do really good work in the morning, maybe you don't take as many breaks or maybe they're just short to get up and like you said, refill your coffee cup or your water. But in the afternoon, can you take a longer break? 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. Can you get outside and walk around the block? Something like that. So get outside when possible. The research says taking a break outdoors and enjoying green space is much, much better for actually recharging your emotional and mental resources than staying at your desk. Something you might consider is walking meetings.
Yeah, I have a colleague who set up an outside office on her patio, and she is one
Yeah.
of the happiest colleagues I have
Nice. Yeah.
because, for the most part, she can sit outside. She's got her laptop, she's plugged in. And you can tell it impacts, how she like, hi, how you doing? I'm sitting outside. It's a beautiful day. I'm
Yeah.
jealous of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, investigate if
Yep.
there's something you can do with that. It might only be a few months of the year here in Missouri,
Right.
but better than nothing, right?
Right.
And this one I was excited to see is that micro breaks are really effective. And what they mean by that is what we're doing today, 60 seconds. A longer break does not necessarily equate to a better break. And what I have found is that I've seen some research on this, and what I've noticed in my own life is that switching it up as much as possible is really helpful as well. So if you're working on the computer all day, when it's time for your micro break, step away if you can, or like we did earlier, close your eyes, really get away from that really active mental and digital space and get into the physical world. Again, if you can get outside, maybe you can go put the dishes in the dishwasher and that's all you do or something like that. So you can be really in the physical world rather than the virtual world. That
Mhm.
makes a big difference too. So we're going to practice again. So for 60 seconds, we're going to do a self massage. So again, where do you carry a lot of tension? Is it your head, your neck, your shoulders? For me, my face and my jaw. So I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute and or you could do your hands maybe. So we're going to do a self massage for any or all of those places that would feel good for you right now. All right. Let me get my timer up. And here we go. 1 minute. I used to get tension headaches in my first job because I used to carry so much stress in my shoulders and neck.
That's where I carry mine too. I was substitute teaching a couple of months ago, and one of the girls said to me, "Do you realize when you talk, your shoulders go up and down?" And
Oh
I looked at her
no.
and I said, "Oh, you're right." I said, instead of using my arms, I'm using my whole body almost and having this conversation with you. It was a really interesting moment where I thought, oh, I'm stressed. And so I'm, like pulling myself in almost, making myself smaller to have this conversation. It was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the
So
mouth
I've
of
noticed
babes.
that. Well, it was
They
sixth grade,
well, okay.
there was a
Young.
lot going on in sixth grade.
The youth. But yeah, so it's just there we go. There's our timer. So there's our 60 seconds. So yeah. So see, it doesn't take long. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of time. Again, we're reconnecting with our body and taking care of ourselves and telling our body that we're here for it. All right. So we've talked about why self-care and short breaks are important and a few ideas for what types of breaks to take and when. But how do you actually implement that? How do you get that those breaks into your schedule. Timers are the first most obvious answer to me. You could set one for every hour to remind yourself to get up from your desk and go refill your water or use the restroom or check the mailbox, whatever it is. Visit a coworker, if you're in the office. So timers are a big one. For me, I used to do a timer in the afternoons so that I would get up from my desk and stretch. I had a series of stretches that I did that were for mobility. And what I found is that because my alarm went off at the same time every day, that after a while, I got really good at ignoring it. So your mileage may vary, but maybe you just change it up a bit, right? So instead of having my alarm go off at 4 o'clock every afternoon, I changed it to like 3:27, some weird time.
Right.
So some other techniques are the Pomodoro technique. I don't know if you've heard of that. So that is a time management technique where you break your work into intervals. For example, 25 minutes of really focused work, and then you take a 5-minute break. And then after you complete 4 intervals, you take a longer break. You can customize that. I typically like to work for about an hour and then take a short break. So figure out what works for you, what makes you happy, play around with things. Life is a very long experiment. Another technique, if timers aren't a good fit for you, is you could attach it to other activities. Every time you get up to get a drink or to go to the bathroom, can you stretch or do some breathing exercises then? Would that increase the amount? Like if you're not taking any breaks right now, or maybe one in the middle of the day, I'm hoping you're drinking enough fluids that you have to go to the bathroom at least once or twice.
Right.
If you're not, maybe add that to the list too.
Well, that's some health issues then that could add then to other
Right?
issues,
Again,
right? Yeah.
gotta take care of yourself. We're mostly water, so you need plenty of hydration. Bring back the lunch break, like we were talking about. There's quite a bit of writing on the internet about lunch breaks and how important they are. So and again, like we talked about, leaving your desk is really important as well. Again, because if you don't, you're not really disconnecting.
Right.
And so that goes both ways. It's self-care. It's also healthy for eating, right? Because you want to be mindful when you're eating and not just inhale it and not even realize you ate. You can try to get some accountability on it, especially if you work in an office. You might be able to get a coworker to agree to take a break with you so you can remind each other when it's time to go. Maybe, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, something like that. There are also evidently browser extensions that you can put in your browser to remind you at certain times or after a certain length of time to get up and take a break. And so that was fascinating. And I'm going to probably look into that for next time. One of them I found was called Break Timer. So it was breaktimer.app. So it might be an interesting thing to check as well. And you can also, of course, use visual reminders. Love a good sticky note. But again, if you're like me, if you see it too often in the same place, the same color sticky note, it tends to blend into the scenery after a while. So make sure you're moving it around if you can, if that happens to you as well. But Post-it notes are great. You can put it on your desktop wallpaper. You can use calendar events, whatever works for you. Again, just keep experimenting and find what works for you. Try it for a while. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't. Maybe you need to change it up. That's okay too. So for our CEOs, business owners, and leaders, I encourage you to be the change you want to see. If you came or if you're watching this presentation, then you know self-care is important, or hopefully you do now, and hopefully you're on board. So how do we make this lasting systemic change, right? Because yes, we have to take care of ourselves. Yes, we have to do individual self-care because everyone needs something different for self-care, but we have to make the space and make it acceptable for it in our workplace as well. Because we often think about burnout as an individual problem with simple fix techniques like learn to say no, take more yoga class, do better breathing things, practice resilience. But there is more and more evidence showing that these personal Band-Aid solutions are not enough because this is turning into an epic and rapidly evolving workplace phenomenon. So a survey of 7,500 full-time employees by Gallup found the top 5 reasons for burnout are unfair treatment at work, unmanageable workload, lack of role clarity, lack of communication and support from management, and unreasonable time pressure. So it does come back to being self-aware, right? Understand yourself, understand your business and what you're pushing for.
So
So
leadership skills, emotional intelligence, all the things we were talking about earlier as well. And
yes, so
it's interesting how it all does
it
come
does, yeah.
together.
Which is why we were talking about, all the different types of leadership coaches. The good ones are probably going to talk to you about understanding yourself and understanding what motivates you and what in your history encouraged you to act certain ways, right? Because it's all tied together. It's all a big bundle.
Yeah.
So our leaders and management should set the example by taking breaks themselves. Because if you tell people that it's important to take breaks, but you don't take them, you're getting into that do as I say, not as I do territory, which I don't recommend.
Right. Which is not good for a leader either, right?
No, it is not. It is not a leadership thing. It's not healthy, at least.
Yeah.
So setting the example also can reduce stigma and unspoken pressure and norms that people might feel to fit in, right? So you can try scheduling dedicated break times. Maybe the whole office takes certain breaks together. Maybe your workflow won't allow that. You could have departments take breaks together or individuals, whatever it is, trying to make it a priority and making people feel comfortable doing it. You could think about creating spaces for breaks. Yes, you have a break room, but is it very comfortable? Does it have the things people might want in there? Is it calm? Do you have that horrible fluorescent lighting that makes everyone feel cruddy? So, what could you possibly do to make really pleasant spaces for breaks? Could you have a break budget, especially if you have employees who are working from home? Do you have a small budget where they could buy a plant that they could take care of on their breaks, or have a yoga mat in their office or something like that? You could consider having a pet-friendly workspace. Might work for some people. Petting an animal is also a great way to reduce stress. But lastly, in case nothing else works, ask your employees. You can use surveys and digital tools to collect feedback anonymously if you have a really entrenched culture or a really large company. If people feel and worry about being singled out or called out for their feedback. So you can do things anonymously, of course, as well. But the biggest caveat with this one is do not ask if you have no intentions of using it, because your employees are smart. They will figure that out, and then they will never be honest with you again.
Yeah, which is not a good thing for a leader to do. So if you ask, be sure that you're going to use that data for something. Yep.
It would be better to not ask at all than to ask and not use it.
Exactly.
So again, you have to know yourself and know what you're capable of and what you're willing to do. All right, we got our last practice of the day here.
Ready.
So for 60 seconds, we're just going to think about what we're grateful for. We're going to practice gratitude because we've been more focused on our physical body, right? Breathing, massage, things like that. So stretching, but we can also just practice being grateful. So I'm going to give us 60 seconds to think about what is good in our life right now. Is there a person you're grateful for? Do you want to just use the emotion of gratitude? Bask in the feeling of gratefulness. You get to choose your own adventure.
Well, my daughter is getting married October 31st. And this is my youngest child, and I never thought that I would live to see this day. So I am super excited.
That is an amazing thing to be grateful for. I love it.
Yep. I'm going to have a son-in-law. And like I said, she just never, ever.
I'm happy you shared that story with us. So that makes me feel happy too. And that's a good feeling to focus on for 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
It can be a pet, it can be a person or an upcoming celebration like that. But practicing gratitude is a huge one. Another way to reframe your view on your life. All right. There's
People
our
don't
60
do
seconds.
it enough.
Yes, when I started working with my coach, one of my first assignments was 5 minutes of meditation, 3 minutes of gratitude, and then 21 affirmations every morning.
And those are hard to do. I have she'll be 87 this year or in 2024. And every morning for her whole life, as long as she can remember, she tells us, she gets up every morning and she looks in the mirror, good morning, Jean, you are beautiful inside and out. And then she goes on her day. And
Nice.
she has done that her entire life. And
it doesn't have to be a lot. Like we said, 60 seconds, one sentence.
Absolutely.
So here is some more information about me if you'd like to sync up on. I'm also on LinkedIn, but it's kind of a crazy URL, so I didn't put that on there. But please visit me on my website at timehonoredcoach.com. You can shoot me an email or check me out on Instagram and Facebook if you'd like more free tips and advice. And then the last thing I wanted to leave you with was one more quote that is, don't take your health for granted. Don't take your body for granted. Do something today that communicates to your body that you desire to care for it. Tomorrow is not promised. And that's from Jada Pinkett Smith, who's one of our American actresses and evidently a talk show host now.
The Red Table Talk. Yep. She had that for quite a while. Wow. This has been great, Jen. Thank you so much. I have
You're
really, I've learned a lot. I made a couple of notes. I think the two key things, for a business owner is those numbers, right? The numbers of lost productivity and lost dollars in value for organizations.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
I didn't even get into turnover rates and the cost of hiring new employees and things like that. So
that could be a whole other conversation because
right?
as we know, hiring and bringing someone in, you're looking at, I recall one time in my corporate life, HR came back to us because one division was losing a few people. And it was something like to the tune of $100,000 per person when you thought about the recruitment time, the hiring process, the benefits, bringing them in, getting them up and running, and they leave in 3 months or 6 months or a year even.
Yeah.
And so that was a big number that really impacted, okay, wait, we have to think about who we're bringing in and, make sure that, and that's really when culture and conversation started a little bit more.
Yeah, because, you can say 1, maybe 2 is a coincidence, but if you're starting to see 3 or 4 or 5, then maybe you have a pattern, right?
Yep. And there's
then
something
you need to
going
investigate.
on. Yep.
So
wow.
Lastly, Carolyn, you and I had talked about this, but since you're going to email out the recording, everyone will also get my PDF of over 70 free and low cost self-care ideas with a little workbook in the back for you to make your own plan and circle the ones that you like as well.
And that is great. Thank you so much. I will make sure. And we're also going to be putting this in our newsletter. So that goes out to over 900 people and they will get that PDF as well. And I'll connect with you after this. So if you want, I'll just share my screen as we say goodbye to everyone.
Oh, I guess I have to stop. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's perfect. And then I'll just share my screen. And, everyone, thank you so much for being here this afternoon and spending time with Jen. I've certainly learned quite a bit. Startup Grind Kansas City is here to help support the ecosystem in the Kansas City metro area, both Missouri and Kansas. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone at our next session, which, by the way, Startup Grind is doing a session for Global Entrepreneur Week, which is in November of 2023. So look for more information on that. And with that, Jen, are you doing a GEWKC?
I am doing this presentation, actually.
Oh, that's great. So then more people will get to see this and be able to start taking care of themselves.
So if you want to come practice it in person, then you should check out Global Entrepreneurship Week, Kansas City, if you're here in the area.
Yeah. Well, great. So thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. I get really excited about these topics, and so I went a little bit over our time, so thank you for your patience.